As new Iranian claims surface, were US forces really just saving a downed pilot in Iran, or trying to snatch enriched uranium under the cover of a dramatic rescue? With Tehran now decoding the operation, is the truth behind Trump's secret Iran mission finally leaking out? And does it look very different from the heroic version he sold at home? If nearly 200 troops, aircraft, and a temporary base were thrown into Iran, was Washington really risking all that for one airman? Or did it have a much more sensitive target in mind? As Iran goes ballistic in its rhetoric, is it trying to paint the rescue as another American failure, hidden behind what it calls fake heroism and a cover story? Tehran now brands the operation a deception mission, insisting the US op was never really about the pilot at all, but about Iran's most guarded nuclear assets. The celebrated US fighter pilot rescue is now under fire, as Iran claims the mission actually hid an agenda to steal enriched uranium on Iranian soil. On April 6, Iran's foreign ministry said the US search mission may have been nothing more than a cover to get close to sites holding enriched uranium. The allegation landed just after Trump announced on April 5 that the second F-15E crew member had been rescued and flown out safe and sound. Trump had hailed the mission as one of the most daring operations in US history, launched after the F-15E was shot down over Iran on April 3. Reports say the rescue involved roughly 200 US personnel and unfolded from a temporary base or forward staging point inside Iranian territory. Iran's military has dismissed that narrative, calling the entire effort a deception and escape operation that ultimately failed to achieve its real goals. On April 6, Foreign Ministry spokesman Ismail Baghai raised fresh doubts about US intentions, saying there were still many questions and uncertainties about what Washington was really trying to do. Ismail Baghai said, and I quote, "The area where the American pilot was claimed to be present in Kogaluyeh and Boyar Ahmed province is a long way from the area where they attempted to land or wanted to land their forces in central Iran. The possibility that this was a deception operation to steal enriched uranium should not be ignored at all." Unquote. Interestingly, Baghai is not the first Iranian official to float this claim, suggesting Tehran may now be building a wider narrative that the US rescue was really a failed uranium theft under the fog of war. Iran's head of energy management strongly hinted that the US rescue operation might actually be a cover-up, implying that Washington was trying to hide its true intentions under the cloak of saving a wounded airman. Ismail Sagab Esfahani, the official in charge, was quoted by RT News directly questioning the F-15 rescue mission, asking whether the narrative made any sense given the scale and location of the US deployment. RT, citing Esfahani, highlighted his incredulity. 2 C-130 transport planes and multiple helicopters amounted to overwhelming force for a single-man mission, raising doubts about what Washington was really after. Esfahani went further, noting that US aircraft just happened to land miles from Isfahan's nuclear-linked facilities, a detail he said was too convenient to ignore given the talk of seizing Iranian uranium. Summing up his suspicions, Esfahani said that perhaps this operation was never a rescue at all, suggesting the entire mission might have been designed around a nuclear objective from the very beginning, according to RT News. Beyond Esfahani's remarks, open-source analysts and war trackers also began to speculate about the exact location of the operation, noting how it lined up uncomfortably close to strategic Iranian nuclear corridors. One prominent geolocator went as far as publishing precise coordinates for the US crash site, feeding a wider debate over whether the mission's geography matched a rescue story or a nuclear grab. Iran's military, meanwhile, openly mocked the US operation, insisting that its forces had intercepted and destroyed American warplanes involved, turning the mission into another symbol of US vulnerability.
Following the desperate attempt of the terrorist U.S. Army to carry out a search and rescue operation for the pilot of its downed fighter jet, a number of enemy aircraft, in the early hours of 16 Farvardin 1405, entered the airspace of our beloved country, Iran. With God's help and support, and thanks to the vigilance and readiness of the warriors of Islam in the armed forces, using electronic warfare, newly developed air defense systems, the implementation of a laid ground defense plan and creation of a military and security cordon, several of these aircraft, including 2 C-130 military transport planes and 2 Black Hawk helicopters, were hit and forced to make emergency landings in an area in southern Isfahan. After the encirclement of the enemy was completed by the heroic fighters of Islamic Iran, the cowardly enemy, in order to prevent embarrassment for Trump, the U.S. president, and to protect the hollow prestige of its army, was forced to heavily bomb its own damaged aircraft, equipment, commanders, and soldiers. The ignorant president, trapped in the quagmire of the war of aggression he himself started, and the talentless, cowardly generals of the defeated terrorist U.S. Army now fully understand that any aggression, ground operation, or infiltration at any point in proud Iran, the land that breaks enemies, will, through the power of God's soldiers and the iron fist of the warriors, armed forces, heroic Basij, and the brave, valiant people of this land, meet with decisive and shameful defeat. The disgrace of this beleaguered president and the defeated U.S. Army cannot be repaired with war propaganda and psychological operations. There is no doubt that all these victories and achievements of proud Iran come under the special care and unique kindness of God, and we are certain that the divine promise of the final victory of the camp of truth over falsehood will be fulfilled. The so-called rescue operation of the U.S. Army, which was in reality a deception mission and a hasty escape plan, staged under the pretext of saving the pilot of its downed aircraft at an abandoned airstrip in southern Isfahan, ended in complete failure with the timely presence of the armed forces of the Islamic Republic of Iran. Based on prior intelligence, and after follow-up examinations by experts present at the scene, it was established that 2 C-130 military transport aircraft and 2 Black Hawk helicopters of the U.S. Army, by the realization of God's promise and with the help of the Almighty and the sacred rifle fire of the soldiers of Islam and the powerful armed forces, were destroyed, an action that further increased the level of the U.S. Army's repeated failures. It has been proven to everyone that the cowardly and bankrupt American Army, in this imposed war, cannot be considered a dominant or superior force in the face of the divine will of the armed forces of the Islamic Republic of Iran. Following this proud and victorious operation, the defeated President of the United States, in panic and with lies, is trying through psychological warfare to escape the arena of defeat and, as before, continues his nonsense and blame-shifting. Yet the reality on the battlefield itself clearly speaks to the upper hand of the powerful armed forces of the Islamic Republic of Iran.
This development comes as President Trump has once again vowed hell for Iran in a profanity-filled Truth Social post, ratcheting up the rhetoric surrounding the conflict. Trump specifically threatened Iran over control of the vital Strait of Hormuz, which is currently under severe blockade by Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC, forces, disrupting regional shipping and energy flows. Iran's Revolutionary Guard reportedly said it had downed U.S. jets, drones, and cruise missiles across multiple regions. Tehran also alleged it shot down 2 MQ-9 drones and destroyed a Hermes drone in key provinces. The US A-10 Warthog was also reportedly hit, with the pilot ejecting safely before the aircraft went down in Kuwait, NBC said. Iran also said another US jet was hit and later crashed into the Strait of Hormuz. At the same time, reports say the US Army had briefed Trump on a separate, highly risky plan to send ground troops into Iran specifically to seize portions of Tehran's enriched uranium stockpile weighing approximately 1,000 kilograms. According to that reporting, the concept involved flying in excavation machinery, digging out stored material, and even constructing a makeshift runway for heavy cargo aircraft to haul the uranium back out. The Washington Post described the proposal as a complex plan with major operational risks, noting that Trump was briefed in detail on how dangerous such a deep incursion into Iran would be for US forces. Those details began to echo uncomfortably with what we later saw during the F-15E pilot rescue operation, leading some observers to question whether elements of the uranium plan were quietly tested in the field. Multiple outlets described how roughly 100 US troops flew into Iran aboard C-130s and briefly captured an abandoned airstrip near Isfahan, exactly the kind of foothold such a ground uranium mission would require. Officially, Washington insists the operation was solely about rescuing the downed weapons systems officer, dismissing any suggestion of a nuclear angle as speculation and defending the scale as necessary for safety. Yet in the days before the rescue, Trump shed light on possible ground operations inside Iran, a timing that now makes the Isfahan mission look less like a one-off emergency and more like a live rehearsal for something bigger.
Are you considering still putting boots on the ground, and would you do that without going to Congress?
I just have lots of alternatives. We have tremendous numbers of ships over there. We don't need them all because of, the power. Look, I would say we're just like we're ahead of schedule on the ballroom. In a much bigger way, we're ahead of schedule with Iran. We're weeks ahead of schedule. If you would have said that in 3 days we were going to knock out 158 ships, their entire Navy, which we did, we knocked out their entire Air Force. We knocked out most of their missiles. That's why you see missile attacks, but they're down to they're sputtering. And we have a group, it's really a new regime. It's a group of people that we've never dealt with before, that are acting very reasonable. It is truly regime change.